Hey guys, this is Harshita, your host for the day, and I hope you are doing great and staying safe. So, I welcome you all to yet another workshop with Designhill, and here we are to help you hone your knowledge and do better in your professional life. And today, we are going to learn about building successful lettering compositions. Today's event is brought to you by Print Shop by Designhill. It's a creative print on demand marketplace where you can discover and buy 50 plus unique products, gifts, and artworks created by the artists all around the world. So, moving ahead, we have with us Nico Ng with us. And I would like you to, Nico, to come on stage and just be here. Great. So, hi Nico. I would like to thank Nico for being here, who has taken out the time to help us, our attendees, with his amazing tips and tricks. So, let me introduce our speaker for the day, Nico Na. He is a multidisciplinary designer, educator, creative entrepreneur based in Manila. In 2014, he started to learn letters and brush calligraphy to expand services, and since then, he has worked with local and international clients, taught workshops, and has given talks both locally and internationally. And he has created lettering tools that are being sold worldwide. Wow, Nico. So, want to say quick hi to our audiences?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, good morning or good evening, wherever you are from the world. Yeah, so thank you for the wonderful introduction, Harshita. Do I start now? Okay.
Yeah, before we start, so we
Okay.
have a couple of announcements to make, guys. So here's a big announcement for you all. We are giving away the certificates to all the attendees who will stick till the end of the session. So you just cannot miss on this chance. So stay tuned till the end. And also, you can take the screenshot of this event, put it on your Instagram stories, tag DesignHillDH, Typography Designers Club, and Nikona.co. All the details about the social media handles will be there in the chat section in a while. And one lucky winner will have a chance to win a print shop gift card worth $50. And having said that, let's quickly look at what Print Shop by Design Hill is all about. So we are all set. That was all about Print Shop. And guys, if you have any questions you want to ask to Nico, just put it in the questions tab and I'll take your questions, ask him directly. And we have also rolled out a few polls in the poll section, so don't forget to answer them too. And Nico, now let's begin the session and all over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Harshita. So let me just pull up my presentation. Okay, so you guys can see my presentation, right? Okay, so good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to today's workshop on building successful lettering compositions. So, um, yeah, when we create lettering compositions, what we do is we design each word and then we arrange the words of our quote to form one final piece or one single artwork. So that's what we do in learning composition. And I'm here to share you five very important elements wherein you have to consider when you're planning as well as when you're creating your actual lettering design or lettering composition. So I encourage you to stay till the end because we're going to do a demo later on the second half of this workshop, as well as I have a special treat for you guys. So um, yeah. Harshita already introduced me, so I'm gonna skip this slide. So let's go straight to the five key elements you need to consider when you're planning and creating your actual artwork. So when creating your lettering composition, you need to have both of these things. First, you need to carefully plan your layout, and then you have to carefully execute your plan. So the first four elements I'll be discussing belong to the planning side of the process, and then the last key element is all about the creation part. So we'll be talking about hierarchy, harmony, flow, balance, and consistency. So yeah, let's go straight to the first one, which is hierarchy of words. So we all know that lettering is different from writing. So when we create lettering artwork, we don't write or draw our letters in the same style, in the same size, in the same color, along a straight line, and then we don't move to the next line when we've reached a certain number of characters. What we do is we design, since lettering is more dynamic than writing, we design each word so that they'll be interacting with each other to make your lettering more interesting. One way to do that is to have contrast words. So you have words that stands out and you have words that don't. So that is what hierarchy is all about. So like this is a lettering piece wherein you could play around with the words and just be creative when you create your design. So now the question is how to apply hierarchy. So first is we identify the keywords of our quote, and then we emphasize these keywords. So after we identify the keywords or the important words of the quote, these are words that hold the meaning of the quote. So I'm not saying that the other words are not important, but we just have to pick out the words that really holds the meaning. So I'm going to go through my process of picking the words in a quote with you in a while. So the question I often get asked is, but what if every word is important? Because if you're doing this the first time, it might be hard for you to identify which words are the important words. And most of the time, during my workshops, you will just tell me what everything is important. Like every single word is important. You can't take away any word. But let me answer that with this. If you know Syndrome from The Incredibles, he says, "When everyone's super, no one will be." So same thing with lettering. So if every single word is important and you emphasize all of these words, then nothing really is emphasized. So you really have to pick the important words, or you really have to select certain words, and all of your words can't be important. But of course, there are exceptions to this. For example, your quote is only 2 words long or like 3 words long. Of course, there could be a chance that every single word really is important. But if you're working on a longer quote, like 5 words and above, you really have to pick important words so that you'll be able to have that contrast and that interesting design to your lettering composition. So we're going to take this quote as an example. So I'm going to teach you how I pick, like the thought process I go through when I choose which words to emphasize. So our sample quote for tonight is "Great things take time." So this is a quote about achieving bigger things by persevering, right? Like achieving great things by achieving great things and taking the time to properly. So knowing the meaning of the quote, we can now select the important words. So what I do is I take one word at a time, and then I imagine it really, really big. And if I get the impression, if the impression I got from that is similar to the meaning of the quote, then that is a word that you could choose to emphasize. So this is how I do it. So let's take the first word as an example. So great. Imagine the word great really, really big. So if I see the word great really, really big, what comes to my mind is achieving something great, something big, right? So that has the same meaning. I mean, that thought is related to the meaning of the quote. So great could be a word that you could pick to emphasize, or you could pick the word great as one of the keywords of your quote. So now we move on to the next word, which is things. So imagine things really, really big. Okay. So if I see the word things really, really big, for me, I might not be clear on what it really means if it's just things. because the word things, it goes with the previous word, which is great. So if you emphasize both great and things, then it makes sense. So um, with that in mind, great and things, both of these words could be our keywords for this quote. So the next is, the third word is take. So imagine the word take really, really big. So if I see that, I might think, am I supposed to get something, or am I supposed to grab, or like acquire something? So for me, it has a different meaning to the meaning of the quote. That's why the word take for me is not one of the key words that you should pick out. Next, we go to the last word, which is time. So if I see the word time really, really big, yeah, it explains a little bit about like achieving things through time, right? Like persevering. So it's somewhat related, it's somewhat important, like it holds the meaning of your quote, right? So the word time could be another word wherein you could emphasize later on. So going through that, normally if I have like a longer quote, I do it for every single word, but since we're time constrained right now, so I just pick a quote that has 4 words. So we now have 3 possible words to emphasize. So there's actually no one correct way of picking the important words of our quote. So you could pick just great. You could only emphasize the word great. You could emphasize both great and things, just these 2 words, or you could emphasize just great and time, or you could just emphasize all of these 3 words, like great, things, and time. But of course, there is wrong ways. There's like a wrong way to pick which words to emphasize. For example, you have the quote, "Do everything in love," and then you pick the word "in" to emphasize, and when you design your lettering composition, the word "in" is really, really big. Now that doesn't make sense. So always remember that if other people pick different words to emphasize and what you would pick, doesn't mean that you are wrong. So yeah, that is my process on how I pick the important words of the quote. So now, when we have the important words of our quote, or the key words of our quote, what do we mean by emphasize? So when we emphasize these important words, what we are doing is we are giving visual priority for these key words. By doing that, we could change the size. We could increase the size, because the bigger your word is, the more attention it's gonna draw. So that's one way of emphasizing your words, by increasing its size. You can also work with color. You can give these important words a color that stands out, not a color that blends with the background. So with style, instead of choosing a simple, plain sans serif lettering style, you could pick something that's more decorative, something that has a lot of flourishes, to be able to capture or draw people's attention towards it. With weight, if you make your letters bolder, it's gonna be more attractive. So these are the things that you could tweak later on when you're designing your lettering composition in order to emphasize these important words. Okay. So again, hierarchy, how do you do that? First is you pick the important words of your quote, and then you emphasize these words. So if you take a look at this example, so the word light and shines, these are my important words, and the rest are my supporting words. So always remember to assign hierarchy to the words of your quote. Okay, so that is the first key element. The second one is harmony. So when we say harmony, we are referring to the harmony of the lettering styles and the shapes of your layout. So we have to remember that there are 2 things to consider with harmony. So what is harmony? It's all about unity. So if you remember earlier, when we create lettering compositions, we are designing words and putting them together to form one final piece, right? So we want all of the elements of our piece to work well together. We don't want like a certain word or certain decoration, certain design feels out of place, like they don't belong within the whole piece. So yeah, we want to make sure that every single element belongs to together. So let's take this for example. You all know Buzz Lightyear, right? So imagine Buzz Lightyear. If you place Buzz in a scene wherein it's prehistoric with caveman, you know it's not going to belong in that scene, right? But if you put Buzz Lightyear in a scene wherein it's space themed, you know Buzz Lightyear belongs there, right? So when you take a look at your lettering composition, you want everything to be in place. You want all of your words to feel like Buzz Lightyear on space, not Buzz Lightyear on like prehistoric caveman scene. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about how do you pair lettering styles harmoniously, okay? So there's no rule wherein if you use, let's say, serif for the first letter, you have to use serif for the remaining words. There's no rule like that. So what I do is I make sure that the lettering styles that I choose, they look similar and they have a similar finish. When I say look, it means that it means like the details or the edges. I just look at the edges or the appearance. So if my letters have like pointed details, I make sure that the rest of the lettering styles also have that same features. So normally you don't mix like pointed and then rounded letters. So yeah, that's how you make sure that the look of your lettering styles, I mean that your lettering styles have the same look. So with the finish, I am talking about texture. So yeah, you make sure you don't mix different textures inside the lettering composition. Otherwise, you know that they don't go well together. Like if you use like a vintage lettering style with like scratch grunge texture, and then you pair it with a futuristic style with neon effects, you know it's not gonna go well together, right? So that's what I mean by similar look and similar finish. Here I have an example. So the first pairing is not a good pairing in my opinion. The second pairing is a good pairing. So for the first one, the letter A, it is a vintage sans serif style with like a pointed edge design. And then if you pair it with something like this, something hand-drawn, something modern, something rounded, this is the rounded part. Uh, and then for the letter A, it's flat and pointed. So you know these two won't go well together. So for the second pairing, the A is paired with the B, with the letter B, which is also what do you call this? Also in serif style. But the contrast is different and the thickness or the weight is different. So you have a very high contrast for the letter B, whereas the letter A is monoweight. So again, they go well together because they have the same look and the same texture. Because the first pairing, you have like a scratch texture for the letter A, and for the letter B, it's really, really smooth and fine. So yeah, that's how you make sure the lettering styles that you choose will go well together. So for example, if you use a slab serif and then you mix it with a simple sans serif, even if they have the different like style or category, they still work together because of their appearance, the flat appearance. So the next harmony we have to check is the layout shapes, or the harmony of your layout shapes. So if you're not familiar with lettering composition, when we plan our lettering layout, what we do is we create shapes, or we assign shapes to our words, and then we build our layout by arranging these shapes. So how do you make sure that when you put two words together or put two layout shapes together, they're going to go well together? So what I do is I check the white space that both of these shapes create. So I'll show you an example on the next slide. So for this one, we are pairing, for the first one on the left, we are pairing a shape with an arc top and a flat bottom. The second shape has a flat top and an arc bottom. So since flat and flat, if you pair flat and flat together, you're going to get this clean rectangular space in between. So it looks like it's a perfect fit for these two layout shapes. But I'm not saying that you can't pair different shapes together. You just have to make sure that you have a clean white space when you put them together. If you take a look at the second example, we paired a sloped rectangle or an angled rectangle with a semicircle with a semicircle curving upward. So if you pair these together, you'll see that you get a weird or odd looking white space in between them. So the left side is actually smaller than the right side. So you want to avoid this, because if you get a white space that looks like this, it's going to be very hard to balance things out, or it might not look like your words will have like a good fit together. But of course, you can create something like this. You just have to balance everything out later with the decorations. But if you want to make it easier for you, pair shapes together that will give a clean white space in between them. So yeah, that's how you make sure that your words have harmony in terms of like your lettering style and the layout shapes. So if you take a look at this example, so for the lettering styles, these are serif, but this is a decorative serif. So if you could see like the texture and like the look, they're similar. So that's one indication that you pick a good lettering style pairing. So with the layout, you can see that the first shape and second shape, they have like a tiny white space, a very thin white space, but the space in between doesn't look very cluttered. But for the word for, you can see that you have a weird shape over there, but you could use decorations to balance everything out later. So yeah, the second key element that you have to make sure that your lettering composition have is harmony of the lettering styles, as well as harmony of the layout shapes. Now let's go to the third key element, which is flow. You want to have a good visual flow within our lettering composition. What do we mean by that? So we want our words or our quote to be easy to read, and we want people to know, we want people to read them in the right order, okay? Easy to read and read in the right order. So we are talking about two things here, legibility and readability. So legibility means legibility means your letters or your words can be read or understood. So if you try like a super creative lettering style for a certain letter, which makes it difficult to read or impossible to read, you don't want that, because that is going to interrupt the flow of your lettering composition. You don't want your readers to like read your quote and then stop because they don't know what word or what letter that is. So yeah, you want to avoid that. So another thing is readability. So how fast can your words be read? So if you arrange your layout in such a way wherein like the reader has to like jump all over the place to like piece your quote together, so you don't want that. You want your lettering composition or your layout to be very easy to read. You want it to have like a very smooth flow. You have to consider how we normally read paragraphs or read words. So we read words from left to right and top to bottom, right? Not everyone. I think there are other languages wherein it's different, right? Like top to bottom and right to left, something like that. But for like these Latin alphabets, is it Latin alphabets? Like A to Z alphabets, we follow like left to right and top to bottom. So you make sure that when people read your line composition, they are following that direction. They don't jump up and down over and over again. So how do you make sure that your lettering layout has a smooth flow? You could trace the reader's path. So here I have two lettering composition or two layout examples. So one has a good flow, the other doesn't have a good flow. Let me show you why. Okay, so here we've traced the path of the reader. So if you take a look at the first one, the left one, so it goes left to right. I don't think you can see my mouse pointer, but yeah, the first one is arc. So left to right, it goes down, and left to right, down, left, right, down, left, right, down, left, right. So if you trace the path, you'll see that there's no intersections or like it goes to the right direction. It doesn't go back up again, down, up, down, and there's no like right to left. There's no opposite direction. So if you do this, what do you call this? Trace. If you trace the reader's path and you see something like this, then it means that your composition has a good flow. If you take a look at the second example, so if you combine these not weird, more complex shapes, it's a little bit more tricky to arrange them. For example, this one. So you go from, we're going to start with the first shape on the right layout, okay? So left to right, it goes down, and it goes like a curve up and back down again. And to read your next word, you have to go up, and then left to right, and then down, from left to right, and then go back up, left to right, down, left to right. So if you trace the path of this lettering composition or this layout, you'll see that there are a lot of intersecting lines and it goes up and down, up and down. So that is how you check if your layout has a good flow or not. You want something similar to the left example, not the one on the right. So yeah. So make sure that the flow is good, like every single letter is readable, and like the direction or like the flow or like the direction of the words are from left to right and up to top to bottom. Okay. So that is the third key element. Next is balance. The fourth one is balance. We want to have a balanced lettering layout. So by balance, what I mean is stability. So we want to evenly distribute the visual weight of our words, okay? So we don't want our words to be concentrated on one side. We want it to be evenly distributed, because if it's too heavy on one side, it's going to feel like it's going to tip over and it's going to break, something like that. So just imagine like if you are placing like a vase on a desk and the vase is symmetric. If you put the vase on the desk, you're sure that it's going to be stable. It's not going to fall off, right? So you want that sort of feeling when we take a look at our learning composition. Because, for example, if you have like a vase that's oddly shaped and it's too heavy on one side, and then when you put it down on the desk, it tips over. If it has that feeling, you don't want your lettering layouts to have that feeling when people look at it. So here are some examples. So on the first one, the leftmost one, you can see you could use a symmetric, what do you call this? A symmetric layout. Actually, this is not a symmetric layout. If you notice, like the second to the last shape, the weight is not mirrored, but you get a point, right? It's symmetric in a way wherein the weight is evenly balanced. So if you compute like the area of the shapes on the left side, it's going to be almost the same as the one on the right side. We want something like that. So you could imagine actually like putting your layout on like a plank with a pivot, putting it on the center, and if it tips over like the last two, the other two samples, then you know that your layout is not balanced. So the second one, everything's heavier on the right side. That's why it's going to tip over to the right. And on the left, you can see that there are more shapes, and the shapes are bigger on the left side. That's why it's going to tip over to the other side. So we want something that's stable, something that looks symmetric. But of course, balance is not always about symmetry. So even if you have layouts that are not symmetric, they can still work. So this is just like a tip for beginners to create your learning layouts symmetrically first, so that you'll be able to get a feel of what it means to have like a balanced layout. So if you take a look at the Tower of Pisa, I mean, it still looks magnificent, even if it's like tilted, right? So it's not always about symmetry, but you have to make sure that you won't give the feeling wherein like your layout's gonna tip over or like roll over, I don't know, something like that. So that is the fourth key element, balance. Make sure you could try to do something that's symmetric. If you're not sure on how to do things, go for something that's symmetric. Now to the fifth, fifth element about consistency. So what I'm referring to is the consistency in execution. So if you remember, I mentioned the first four key elements are in the planning side, and the last one, and the fifth one, is on the execution part. When we're creating our learning composition, we want to make sure that we carefully plan our layout and we carefully execute it. You can't have just one and not have the other, because if you just go straight to your learning composition without doing any planning, I guarantee you, when you finish your work, you'll have like regrets. Oh, I wish I did this. I wish I changed this. All these things. So you have to make sure that you have both. You carefully do both. So you can't just plan, and then you can't just plan carefully, like every detail, planned out every detail, and then when you're creating your actual lettering, you don't put any like thought to it. You just quickly do it. If you do that, and then you're just going to waste your energy and time because yeah, your letters are not going to be in place. You won't have like a good balance if you just execute it without carefully doing it. So in terms of consistency, we are going to talk about, well, we want to look out for these two things when we're creating our actual letter composition, which I'm going to show you in just a bit. So we want to make sure we create our guides accurately, because if our guides if our guides are crooked, most likely our letters will be as well, right? So if you intend like the words to be rectangular or like horizontal, and then you draw it like slightly angled, and then your letters are going to be like angled as well, right? So that's why it's very important to make sure that you draw your guides accurately. So yeah, I know a lot of people, they don't like to use a ruler and measure everything out, but it really makes a big difference. So um, another thing about consistency is uniform letters. So going back to harmony, we want all the elements of our words to look like they belong together, right? So um, just imagine reading something, and then there's one word wherein some of the letter have different fonts. It's gonna irritate you, right? Looking at it. So same way with lettering composition. When you're doing your words, like you're doing your letters for a certain word, make sure that make sure that you have consistency, like the weights are consistent, the contrasts are consistent, the sizes are consistent. So these are the two things you have to keep in mind if you want to create something consistent. Okay, so now let's move on to the second part, which is the demo. So the code that I'll be doing is great things take time. It's the code that we practiced on earlier with hierarchy. So I think we're going to have like a 1 minute break
Yes,
before for me to
exactly. So
start things
I
up.
was just about to state that. And I must say, Nico, that was an amazing presentation with all the examples and samples you did. That was so amazing. So if you allow us, we would like to take a short break and then we'll come back. Okay, okay. So you are having a water. So, guys, I'm personally loving this presentation and the workshop. I hope you all are enjoying the session. So, I would like to give a quick shout out to Print Shop by Design Hill, world's leading creative marketplace, for organizing this event. And I hope you are taking the screenshot of this event and posting on your social media accounts. So, on this note, let's take a quick break and keep this interesting workshop going on.
So I think if they have any questions, they could type it down in the comments, right?
I've always been creative and always been an artist. As a young girl, I used to paint rocks and I used to sell them for a quarter on the street. And I just fell in love with it. It just grew into a passion of mine. I started looking on the web and I came across Designhill, and they had a design contest to design a logo, and I entered it and I won. And I was like, oh, this is really great. I can pick and choose what type of logos or design projects I want to work on. And it allows me to be creative, keep my hands, with my tools and working. So it's kind of nice. It's really easy to use. You can scroll through the projects and there's sections that you could go by. It's really easy. There's a few clients who have come back to use the one-on-one projects. There's one client in particular, she owns a vintage shop, and I designed her logo, and she came back. She needed a design for a flyer, and she really liked the illustrations that I did for her, so she came back a couple of times with projects. I would recommend it, especially if you're a designer that's starting out and you want to learn from other designers, seasoned designers. It's a place to keep in the game and keep using your tools. It makes me feel great, and it kind of confirms that I should be doing this. And I love to see logos that I've designed out, and proud of that. And I think that the clients are so happy that their logo represents what they do and makes them look good. It's a collaboration. It's good for me, and it's definitely good for them.
So, all right, guys, we are back again with our awesome guest, Nico. And, guys, Don't forget to ask your questions in the questions tab. And once the demo is over, we'll take up all your questions and Nico will all answer them all. So, Nico, let's begin with the demo session.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to switch my camera so that you'll be able to see my desk. Okay, so I'm just gonna walk you through the process or my process of creating lettering compositions while applying the key elements that I mentioned earlier. So we always start with the quote. I always write it down. Like, great, can you guys see it? Great things take time. I always write it down so that I could check if I misspelled the words at this stage. You don't want to finish your whole lettering piece and then you realize that you have misspelled something, right? So I always write it down and I usually encircle the words that I want to emphasize, like that, great things and time. And then I start to sketch layout options. So you could always start with something rectangular, something easier before you try what do you call this, before you try more complex shapes. So it's going to look like this if everything's rectangular. So let's try another one. So arc top, arc bottom, like this. And I love using like the wave so I could turn it into a ribbon. And then yeah, I also like something curved like this. Okay, you could also try something else. What if like you have like a roof and then like this, something that looks like a bridge, and then something diamond and something horizontal like this. Okay, so you could try several layouts, and once you have the one you think will best fit your design, then you start working on that. So yeah, so we want to make sure, let's apply, what do you call this, the key elements that we mentioned earlier. The first one is hierarchy. We already picked hierarchy. Second one is harmony. So harmony of lettering layouts, you can see that the white space here is really nice and clean. For this one, yeah, it is balanced, like it is like it is even. I mean, the left side is the same as the right side, so which is good. And then for the flow, from here to here, we trace the direction like this, like this. So it seems like it's on the right direction. We're left to right and top to bottom. So this one has a good flow. And as for the balance, you can see that it's somewhat symmetric. So you have like a balance layout for this one. So yeah, and then we now move on to do the actual lettering work.
Nico,
So
I'm
here,
so sorry.
yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there are few attendees who are stating that the page and the lighting is too bright for them to see. So can you just change your lighting part a bit
Okay.
dim?
Um, yes, let me dim it down. On my screen, it is very dark. But how about now? Is it better?
Guys, do let us know in the chat section if this is visible now.
Let me turn off the light. Okay. This one, I turned off my lights, so I hope that is better now. Okay.
Much
Yeah,
better.
better.
I can see it perfectly. Yes, we are getting so many yes. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll continue. So now we have to sketch after the planning stage. So for this one, I'm going to use sans serif. Sorry, I'm going to use serifs for all these three to make it easier. So now let's move on to the actual creation of our lettering composition. For me, I always, yeah, this is my composition ruler. It makes the whole process easier because for me, I usually hate doing lettering compositions because, yeah, uh, when I do it by hand, it's always like crooked. So yeah, I came up with this to make the whole process easier. So yeah, what I'm doing is I'm just dotting the dots right here to help me with my grid. So I always draw the center line, so that when I align my composition ruler, when I draw the shapes, everything is going to be centered and balanced. So yeah, first step is I create this center line, and I prepare these measurement markers so that I don't have to use a ruler to measure everything manually. So I'm very mathematical, so I want to measure everything, but you don't necessarily have to do it this way. You could just like estimate the, what do you call this, the heights of your elements. So I'm just doing this, one, two, like this, okay? So I'm marking the area wherein I'm going to draw the shape. So, okay, let me move my laptop a bit. Okay, so to do this quickly, I'll just align the composition ruler along the center line and on the point to draw my first shape like that, okay? So my second shape is, actually for my first shape, it's like this, right? Arc top and flat bottom. But what I like to do is I like to emphasize like the first and last letter. Okay, that's why I'm gonna draw two arc guides. So I'm gonna align the composition ruler to the center line, draw my second arc, and the third line is going to be my horizontal line, like that. Okay, so this is the shape for my first word. Next is I want to do the same thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I just want to measure everything. So the second shape is going to be a flat top and an arc bottom, but I want to make the first and last letter bigger too. So the first point is going to be horizontal, then two arcs. Okay. So like this, align the composition ruler to the center guideline, and then I'm going to draw the horizontal line like that, and then draw arcs for this, and then for this point. Okay, like that. Okay. And the third one is gonna be this wave. It's gonna be in this wave, which will turn into a ribbon. And then the fourth shape is going to be something like this, a semicircle, but here. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to draw the, what do you call this, the last shape first, so that I'll be able to center the third shape properly. Okay. So I'm gonna maybe put it about here, like that. Okay. So I'm gonna draw, like, bring it down a little bit more. So I'll make sure your composition ruler is aligned so that you get to draw shapes that are perfectly centered. So here are my shapes. So okay, so I'm gonna use the rectangular line just to mark like horizontal lines, so that when I break this, it's gonna be symmetric. So you have the first shape, second shape, the last shape, and for the third shape, let's just assume like the center of this area. And then let's just draw it using this smaller shape. Okay. So for this one, I didn't draw the, we call this the left and right boundaries yet. So let me just quickly do that. Right here. I'm just aligning it on the dots that I made earlier, so that all of my letters or all of my words will be centered. So for this one, for the first shape, we have something like this, right? These two are bigger. So I'm aligning the dots to help me draw that easier, like this and like this. So usually, yeah, clean everything up so that I won't get confused, and so that you'll be able to see clearly like the shapes, our layout shapes. Okay, Let me just erase it real quick. Okay. Normally I don't erase it anymore, but yeah. I'm erasing it so that it's going to be clearer to you. So this is our layout guide. So our first shape has an arc top like this, and this is the bottom boundary. And our second word has this shape. This is just a reflection of it. So flat top and arc bottom like this. But the first and last letters are going to be bigger. So I have here my wave, and then yeah, the first shape is a semicircle. Okay, but it's gonna start from this line to that line. Okay, so after I've perfectly drawn the layout, what I do next is I add in the letter skeleton. So I'm gonna draw like just the skeletons to make sure that I get the sizing and spacing correctly. So you don't want to go straight to drawing your letters, because if you have what do you call this, if like the spacing is not good, you're gonna have to erase more things. So yeah, for this one, it's supposed to be the word great, Great. So I always mark the center letter so that I know what letter to put in the center. Okay, so the first letter is gonna be G, right, like that, and then the last letter is gonna be T. So we have R, E, and A here. Okay, for this one, it's things. Things, so THI is going to be on the first, I, and G, S. Okay, things is like that. And then take, then time, T is here, I is here, M is here, and E is here. So yeah, this is just the lettering skeleton. So after doing this, if you see that you need to adjust certain spacing of your letters, you could go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you could continue drawing the letters. So for the letter G, again, we want consistent or uniform letters, right? So the thickness has to be uniform. So I'm going to use the letter ruler. This is the second lettering tool that I designed to help us create like lines that are, what do you call this, consistent. Okay, so if you could see here, this has the same width as this, which is what we want. So after doing that, I'll just start to like give my letters weight following those guides. Okay, so for this one, I like to do my G like this, like that. Okay, I'm just doing it real quick right now because we don't have much time. Okay, so for the letter R, you start with what do you call this, the stem, right? So this is the stem. So I'm using these edge measurement lines so that when I draw like a straight line, it has the same thickness. That's what you want. Okay, so for the curve, okay, like that. So this as well has the same thickness, so that when you draw like that, when you draw your letter, you have consistent thickness like that. Okay, and then draw this. I like to go down for the R, the tail of the R. Again, I'm using this so that I get the same thickness like that. Okay, G and R. Okay, the spacing, sizing, and spacing are all good. So next, the letter E. Draw the stem. I'm using the same guide so that I have consistent, consistent thickness. So this, again, this is a decorative serif that I love to do for my lettering compositions. Like that. So there's my letter E. For the letter A, so of course we know this has to be shorter, I mean thinner. The left side is thinner. And then for the right side, it goes back thick. Okay, so again, the width of this is the same as this, and this. That's what you want, like a consistent width for your letters. So for the crossbar of the letter A, yeah, it's going to be like that, a curved one, not a straight one. So next, we start with, we call this the stem of the T, like this. I'm using the edge again to make sure I get the same thickness. And then just design this a little bit like that, since this is our important word we want to emphasize. So that is the first word done. So if you can see, we want the thickness to be consistent for all of our letters like that. Okay, after that, we move on to the second word. Okay, so what we do, we just do the same thing. Okay, just draw the stem with the same thickness like that. Okay, do the same thing like this. Okay, and then the letter H. Okay, the left stem first. Make sure it has the same thickness. Draw the other stem like that. So we have something. This is the same thickness as this and this, which is what we want. Okay. Okay. So I'm not going to do the rest of the letters for the word things because I'm just repeating the process for the word great. So again, after doing the, what do you call this, the skeleton, you just add in the weight following the spacing that you have already did. So you can do like that. Done. And then for the N, just do the same thing, G and S. So I just want to show you with the letter S because normally this is a tricky letter to do with the spine. So what I do is I draw like the bottom spine first. Draw the bottom spine. And I use this guide. And then this has to be the same thickness as this and this. That's how you get consistent letter S. Like that, okay? And you can just design it later like that, okay? So with this, we just want to turn it into a ribbon. I love using this shape because you could just draw like a wave to the end and then follow this and then draw a wave like that. And then there, that is your ribbon, as easy as that. And I just add some details like this. Oops. And then I just draw my letters like that. Make them thicker. And I'll just do it for the rest. And for this one, it's just the same. So here, we just draw like that. That's the letter T. Okay, like that. Just draw it like this. So you get something that has the same thickness. So once you've done or completed the whole, what do you call this? The whole letters, what you can do now is, yeah, you could use your favorite ink or your favorite marker just to ink everything up. You could just shade them, or you could add details inside. You could add like a 3D effect or line shadow effect. That. And for the empty spaces, you could add in some decorations. If you're familiar with my work, I always use leaf decorations and designs. So once you've completed everything, so you're gonna get something that looks like this. Okay, great things take time. Okay, so yeah, we don't have time, so I can't finish the whole thing. So if you just follow the rest of the steps, you're gonna get something like this. So yeah, that is the end of the
And that
demo.
is really beautiful, Nico.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
you were absolutely on time, and we could have just moved forward a bit with 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but yes, that was so perfect with each and every tip and trick. And we have a lot and lots of questions in the questions tab. So why not let's begin with the question answers.
Okay, sure. Are you going to read the question to me?
I'll just put the questions on your screen and so that you can see, and I'll just read out loud also. Okay, so first question is from Melissa. She is asking, what are the first material that we need to start lettering?
Okay, so my suggestion for that, or my advice for that, is you don't focus on the material. So for me, if you just watch a demo, I only used pencil and I was able to create something like this. So yeah, don't think too much about the material that you're going to use. Just make sure you have a good pencil, a good eraser, and a perfect sheet of paper, and then that's it. So that's what you do first. You have to develop the skill of drawing your letters consistently before you move to adding colors or like using different pens, so that you only have to think about developing the skill first. Okay, so that is my advice for you. Focus on pencil first. Don't think about other materials for now.
Great, great. So I hope, Melissa, you got your answer. And up next, we have question from Angelia, and she is asking tips on how to explore new lettering styles.
Oh, this is very interesting. Tips on how to explore new lettering styles. Um, there are actually a lot of tips. So normally what people do is they find inspiration from Pinterest and then they learn how other learning artists do it. So it's not something I recommend because you're going to end up like creating something that has similar style to someone else. But that is a good practice as beginners so that you'll be able to get like the form of the letters perfectly before you discover your own style. So for me, you can practice by trying other people's style, but don't claim it as your own. It's just for like you use it as a reference to know what the right way of drawing the letters is. So
Yes.
actually, I'm working on a course specifically for that, exploring new lettering styles. It's not yet ready, but yeah, for now, what you do is you can learn from other people first.
Great. So, guys, you can also follow Nico, and you'll get to know whenever he starts this course, and you will be able to learn from him directly.
Yes.
So, up next, we have a question from Ayu, and she's asking, what are the essential tools we need to learn about lettering compositions for beginners?
Okay. Essential tools to learn about lettering composition for beginners. Um, does tool mean like physical tool or like reference or sources? Anyway, for tools like physical tools to get started with learning compositions, I suggest um, you to sketch a lot of different layouts first in a grid pad, in a grid pattern paper. That's how I started. I just drew like different shapes together. Got. That's how I familiarized myself with which shapes will go well together and which won't go well together, and which shapes are easier to add your words in. Because if your shape is very complex or very odd, the letters are it's going to be a struggle to add in your letters, right? To add in your words later with that weird shape. So for me, practice just drawing the layouts. Don't draw any words if you really want to practice just composition. So just draw the words on a grid paper. That way you're going to practice how to balance the layouts perfectly. Use a grid paper first. Okay.
Great. So, Ayu, use the grid and just start as a beginner, and you will be a pro soon. So,
Yes.
next question is from Lara, and she is asking best tips to get better at lettering.
Oh, okay. So my best tip is to ask for feedback from people. Just ask for feedback because it's very important to get like a different perspective of your own work from other people, because you have certain mistakes that you won't notice yourself, because since we're the one who made it, uh, when we look at our work, we're a little biased about how we see our work. So it's always good to get someone who knows what they're doing and ask them for pointers on what to improve. Because if you just keep on repeating and repeating, like you just draw without thinking about what you can improve, then you're not really gonna improve that that fast, right? But if you ask someone who knows what they're doing, specific points on what you could improve, specific things that you made, specific mistakes that you've made in this work, so you could avoid later in the future. So that's my tip for you. Actually, yeah, I mean, before I know there's one lettering artist. I started before him, but this guy likes to like message everyone and like ask for advice. Now he's doing his work is way better than mine. So I think that's the best advice I could give to you is just ask people who know what they're doing for feedback on how to improve your work.
Great, great. And criticism also works for it because we are all set to improve and improvise and take it positively. Great.
Yes.
So this question is from Ashlyn, and I also am mean to know this because I just read about your bio, and you said you were an engineer, and then you shifted your career to graphic designing and lettering part. So yes, this question is, hi Nico, how or what did you practice when you first entered the world of design, and do you have any tips for people making a career shift into design?
Okay. So when I was still in college, taking up engineering, I already because I joined an organization wherein I was assigned to do graphic design work. So I think that's because lettering and graphic design they're related to each other. So if you learn like techniques or like the concepts of graphic design, you could apply it to lettering as well. So that's one way to do that if you want to follow my path. I started learning graphic design, how to like bring elements together, like what I mentioned earlier about harmony and all those things like balance, harmony. So you can learn that from graphic design to apply to your lettering. So after I graduated college, I freelanced as a graphic designer. So I asked my friends with businesses. So I asked them for projects. So that's how I developed my skill in terms of designing things. Because lettering, we're designing letters too, right? Designing letters and layouts. So after that, what I did is I focused on brush lettering first or brush calligraphy. So I spent like a few years, like every day I would spend at least 30 minutes writing the same letter over and over again until I like perfected it. So yeah, so just keep on developing one skill at a time. That's my advice for you because in lettering you could do so many things. There's so many techniques, so many effects that you can learn, so many like devices or like apps that you could use. You're just gonna overwhelm yourself. But what you could do is you could take one at a time and learn it really well and develop that skill first. So mine is graphic design, and then to brush lettering, to just lettering something that's not script. So there.
Great. So guys, focus is the key and practice. Great. So up next we have a question from Ayu. She is asking, do the symmetrical layouts is more safer than the asymmetrical one?
Sorry. Can
Do
you
the
pop up the question?
It's there on your screen. Do the symmetrical layout is more safer than the asymmetrical one?
Sorry. It's not popping. It's not showing on
Can
my.
you hear me clearly? I'm just
Yes.
stating it out loud. Do the
Okay.
symmetrical layout is more safer than the asymmetrical one? Which one is better, symmetrical
Oh, okay.
layout or asymmetrical?
Actually, there's no right answer for that. Both are good in their own way. So I would recommend you to focus on symmetrical layouts first if you're just starting, because that's easier to balance. And then once you've mastered that or like you familiarize yourself with that, you could try breaking small rules, one rule at a time. Just try to like do something that's asymmetrical, and then you can see if it's not balanced or if it doesn't work. Either you try a different layout or you do something different or you add certain elements to balance things out. So yeah, it's different. It's not one is not better than the other. It's just yeah, it's more of your expertise. So if you're more experienced, it's easier for you to do asymmetrical. But if you're just starting, I would suggest you focus on something symmetric first.
Great. So this question is from Nafisa, and she is asking how to create asymmetric balance.
Okay, so how to create asymmetric balance? Again, it all boils down to the visual weight. So you could start by drawing one shape wherein it's asymmetrical. It's super concentrated on one side than the other side. So if you have something like this, for example, the left side is super heavy, and then the right side is like really, really light. What you could do is, if you don't have any more words to add on, what you could do is you could balance it out with certain designs, like certain embellishments. For me, I like adding leaf decorations, like light rays, like sparkles, all of those things. I use those elements to balance my lettering. So yeah, that's what you could do to balance asymmetric layouts.
Great. So we have last two questions left, and this from Ashmi, and he is asking, where do professional designers go to look for typefaces?
Okay, I think this is not really my expertise. I think this is more graphic design because I've stepped out of graphic design a little bit, so I don't know like the latest place, the best place to go look for typefaces. But for me, if I still do some graphic design projects, what I do is, since I'm subscribed to Creative Cloud, they have like a library of typefaces that you could check out. So that's where I look for typefaces now.
Great. So this is the last question from Ashmi, and he is asking, serifs improve fast, easy readability for long text. So is it a myth or a truth?
Serif improve fast, easier readability for long text, myth or truth. Um, it's hard for me. It's hard to generalize like serifs to be like easier to read for longer text. It really depends on how you execute it or how you draw your serifs, because there are certain serif styles where it's more difficult to read, and there are other serif styles that are easier to read. For me, if readability is what is your number one priority, try to avoid serif styles that have a very, very high contrast or extreme contrast, wherein the thin sides are super fine. So if you have something like that and it's really, you have like a long text, of course the words are going to be smaller and those thin, fine details won't be that visible. So I think it's not a matter of like serif or sans serif, which is easier to read. I think it's how you create the typeface.
Perfect. So we are all done with the questions, and there is the last wish from Kenny, and she is asking if you can just share your design once again on the screen which you created so that she can get a help from it.
Okay, do I do it this way or I just
Yes,
switch
it's
camera?
clearly visible.
Okay, so here
So
it is.
great, great. So great things take time, Kenny. And here's your design. You can just take the screenshot of it for your reference, and you will get the recording of the event once the event is over. So Nico will always be there to help you via video. So on that note, guys, we have come to the end of this wonderful session with Nikona, and this was indeed a value packed session, and there is a lot we could have learned. But unfortunately, we are limited by time here. So I hope you guys love the session because I personally did. And once again, I would like to thank Nico for taking out the time and being the part of this event. So, any last thought, Nico? Any suggestions related to the technology courses or anything?
Okay, can I share like my last few slides really quick?
Yes, of course, of course.
Yeah, because I made a great resource for lettering. So actually, yeah, before we go to that, I challenge you to apply what you learned, and then you create a lettering composition by applying hierarchy, harmony, flow, balance, and consistency. And yeah, if you if you created this challenge, if you did this homework, make sure to tag me so that I'll be able to see your work and give you more constructive feedback. So, um, and also I created an all-in-one lettering creator starter kit. It's a kit filled with so many different things, everything you need to start lettering as to start lettering. So because I often get like questions, oh, I don't know, it's hard to plan, it's hard to post consistently. I don't know which words or what quote to create. I don't know how to do my layouts. I don't know how to draw letters properly. So I answered all those questions into this kit. So this is a free kit. You can download it on my website. The link is actually in the comments section, or you could go to my website, niconang.co, or if you have your phone, you can just scan this QR code. So again, make sure you get this because I have shared a lot of secrets here inside this kit. And one last thing, if you want to know more about the rulers that I use, the composition ruler and the letter rulers, you could always go to my website. More information is there. You could check out the list of countries wherein it's available. If not, you could order directly from me. I ship internationally as well. So that is it. Thank you guys for keeping me company throughout this workshop. And thank you, Harshita and Designhill, for inviting me to do this workshop for everyone.
It's totally our pleasure, Nico. So, guys, all the links of which Nico just stated right now are in the chat section. So you will get to know everything in the after once the session is over. You get all the links in your chat section once you see the recording again. So on this note, guys, if you're interested and haven't registered in yet in more of the events, such events, so we'll just share the links in the chat section and you can just check out all the events there, the upcoming ones, the old ones and everything. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and you can check all the videos there also. And recently we have launched Learn page also in order to feed your inspiration and creativity. So multiply your business and creative growth 10 times by learning tips, hacks, growth stories, and expert advice from the industry's best. So visit our Design Hills Learn page also. And also we have recently launched an uber cool design tool called Design Hill Studio, wherein you can create some cool design assets for your business for free using the Design Hill Studio tool. So do visit that also, guys, and all the links will be there in the chat section. And on that note, I would like to say bye bye to everyone who, for who all have joined us here today. Take care, guys. Stay safe.
Bye, guys.